With Marvel releasing a Spider-Man video game in 2018, it actually made readers of comics and fans of video games wonder why exactly has there not been an abundance of comic book themed video games. Marvel is releasing films almost on a yearly basis and has no real plans to change this. So why exactly is there a serious lack of video games based on comic books? In terms of comic book themed video games, it goes beyond just DC and Marvel. In terms of developing and releasing said content, DC seems to be the only particular publisher with a steady flow of games, and even a Batman Arkham video game universe, which is quite expansive and in-depth with its series going back to 2009. But Marvel has been less than encouraging with not much modern video games in terms of characters based on its properties. There are some reasons as to why. Lack of casual interest. Believe it or not, a huge reason why more comic book themed video games might not be made is because of the casual gaming interest. Marvel knows that those who read comic books would easily buy a video game adaptation, but these players and fans only represent a small percentage of the gaming market population. Marvel leadership would want a more broad appeal not just to those who read comics or play games, because the casual person, the casual base, who is neither into comics nor games necessarily, because that's the casual market, which is statistically the largest group of gamers. This group of said people have not exactly wanted an adaptation for games or comics. This is a main reason why only a few comic book inspired video games have been made since the Marvel Cinematic Universe was established in 2008, building a franchise. When Arkham was first released in 2009, DC took a chance and decided to completely rebuild what they believed to be a Batman-themed video game. Having helped in part, and when commentators look back on the success of the series, it's now credited in part from Rocksteady along with Eidos and Square. All of them together had parts in creating the first in the Arkham franchise. Due to it not being a button-mashing video game, as a good amount had been prior, but relying on aspects of a role-playing game, the game itself appealed to all gamers, not just fans of Batman. This was an extraordinary reason why the game did so well, and why DC was able to build a strong franchise and loyalty base with the installments that later followed. It's been said that making a superhero video game franchise needs to be very broad in terms of attracting as much gamers as possible to buy the game. The gamers that buy the product help promote the title, and in modern video games that's very important in terms of franchise and interest. Hype. A good amount of people want to be in on the gaming experience of the year, or the game that everyone talks about, having something relating to that game. With the Arkham titles, a lot of online speculation, discussion, and commentary relating to the game were everywhere. It's also important to be in on the discussion with casual gamers, because they're the core base that Marvel or DC would appeal to with the hype in terms of interest and a franchise. Reception. The difference between hype and reception in terms of modern superhero adaptation video games is that once the hype is gone for the game and players are still experiencing the said title, they then speak of aspects and dimensions of the game. Even after the initial release of a game, later on there are still those who are neutral in terms of buying the actual product and would only consider investing said time and effort into the game once they actually hear if the game is good or bad, from others who have already played and listening in on the hype and reception. Most feedback from gamers based on the reception is more from serious gamers, and often this is where the real comments from the game itself are at. Sometimes, reception can be completely different from interests, franchise relations, or gaming hype. Connections to source material. Since comic book video game adaptations are of course from comic books, an aspect of reception and hype could be connections to the comic sources. How is the material from the comics being adapted for the video game? What is being fully changed, partially changed, not changed? Are these decisions good for the game, good for the players? How much is too much? How little is too little? This is actually an important reason for why there have not been more adaptations, because getting it right is not always possible. Getting it right is not always easy. Often we are bad comic book games, and bad games can leave negative reception, which can hurt hype, it can stop hopes for franchises, which can kill interest in a game. Gaming technology. It might sound insignificant, but gaming technology also plays a small part in why comic book themed video games have been few and far in between. In order to have a game that can relate to source material, to reception and hype, for franchise and interest in a game, it all comes down to technology that can make the adaptation a good experience. In terms of a superhero theme, which requires more advanced technology of the gaming hardware, only in modern video games can that be successfully, truly, technically done. These are just a few reasons as to why there have not been much good comic book themed video games.